Guys, welcome to Falcons Central Radio Show on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman, over at FalcFans.com. I'm joined by Scott Karasik at the Falcons Wire. This week, we are joined by our Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Central cohort at Patriots Central Radio, Matt LaPan. You can also find his work at NFL Spin Zone. Is there any other place that you would like to plug before we get started, Matt?
No, I think that's about it. Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm excited for the Super Bowl this week.
Yeah, it's weird that Pro Football Central's last two shows that have been going strong are the Falcons and the Patriots show. It's just sort of a weird coincidence that those two shows, out of all the shows that they've had in the past, are still going strong, and this happens to feature a matchup between those two teams. So I guess it's serendipitous that God is smiling upon these two teams, I guess, so to speak, in that show. But anyway, we will be talking about this upcoming matchup quite extensively tonight. That's the main focus of our show. As usual, we will answer your mailbag questions throughout the show. But let's get started with this matchup. Now, as we usually do, we start these things off talking about some of the injuries. It looks like the Falcons are mostly healthy. The only two injuries that were sort of lingering are Julio Jones with his toe/foot/everything below the knee injury, and Alex Mack with his ankle injury. Both of those guys, I think, have been limited in practice so far this week, but for all intents and purposes, they're fully expected to play as they were last week. So haven't heard any sort of setbacks with that. We know how the Patriots tend to massage the depth chart a little bit. So I'm curious if Matt has any takes on any of these injuries with the Patriots. The only two that we sort of talked about last week as something to monitor were just two special teams injuries with Cyrus Jones and Nate Ebner. It seemed like the rest of the roster was pretty healthy, but you know how Belichick likes to put a bunch of guys on the injury report. So I'm curious if Matt sees any one of these as concerning.
You mean Belichick actually – you mean he's not completely serious with the injury report? Come on now.
I've heard some things. I don't know.
In terms of injuries, I mean, Cyrus Jones you can forget about. There's no way he's going to be active. He ruined his season with a few special teams gaffes on punt returns in the Baltimore game this year. For fans that aren't familiar with it, he ran towards a ball that was on the ground. And then watch it roll by him while the Ravens recovered it on the 2-yard line. The protocol, he's back in practice. I wouldn't worry too much about him. I think the only one to really watch that could be an impact is Danny Amendola. You know, he's not on the injury report because he's full-go practice, but he never really came back from his ankle injury. You know, it really hampered him in the few playoff games that he's played. He hasn't looked like himself. That's a spot that the Patriots obviously like to go at. That'd be one thing I would look at. But in terms of injuries, this is probably as healthy as the Patriots have been all year. They're banged up here and there. Dante Hightower's been nursing a knee all year. Martellus Bennett's been nursing just about every portion of his body. He's had a shoulder, a knee, an ankle, a back, a little bit of everything this year. So, bumps and bruises here and there. But in terms of injuries, this is about as healthy as the Patriots have been in a long time.
Okay. So there will be no excuses as far as injuries concerned because the Falcons are pretty much, fully healthy with the exception of one or two key players on injured reserve. But that's the case for everybody at this point in the season. So let's move on to some of these matchups. Sort of start us off, but I'm certainly intrigued. I think one of the more intriguing chess matches is going to be how Belichick decides to match up what probably amounts to one of the better trio of cornerbacks in the league against the Falcons receivers. Particularly, a lot of attention is paid on how the Patriots are going to try to keep Julio contained. Is it going to be Butler? Is it going to be Eric Rowe? Is it going to be Logan Ryan? I'm curious, Scott, where do you think it is? And we'll see if Matt agrees with that.
I mean, just looking at how they've been matching guys up, it seems like they're going to try and do – it doesn't make sense for them to put their best two defensive backs, McCourty and Butler, on Jones. It seems like it's a overuse of resources. Now, I could see them using Rowe and McCourty. They do need that deep safety help regardless against Jones. And then is probably going to be that guy who they feel can at least physically handle the beating that Jones would put on him trying to come off the line. Because Rowe had played safety in the past. He's a little bit more physical. He's a little bit bigger. He's that 6'1", about 205-pound cornerback. So you got to have that guy who can at least be big enough to handle Julio. When it comes to Sanu, I think you've got to put Ryan on Sanu because he's a little bigger than Butler is, and you need the quicker guy for Gabriel. So I think you're going to see Butler on Gabriel. Now, if it's more of a base package, you're going to see more of the Butler on Sanu just because it makes more sense to do it that way. But I don't see a situation where Gabriel comes in and he's not covered by Butler.
Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
So it is interesting. Personally, I want to see Butler on Julio. I think everyone does. You have the best wide receiver in the league on one of the better corners in the league. But I kind of agree with Scott here. I think that it's unrealistic that you're going to put Butler and then shade Devin McCourty over the top of him. But if you look at what Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia have done in the past, they've gone Logan Ryan with guys that are bigger, more physical. They've done it on DeAndre Hopkins in the past and guys of the like. I think that what they do is they kind of bracket. So Ryan will bump him on the line, try to be physical. Obviously, that's tough with Julio because you have to have size, strength, and agility to do anything against him on the line. Logan Ryan doesn't exactly have the size, but if he can try to beat him up a little bit on the line and then allow McCourty to kind of bracket over the top, I think that's the approach the Patriots will take. And then on Sanu, you'll see Malcolm Butler and, kind of the Patriots almost want to force the Falcons to beat them with a guy like Gabriel or going to their backs. That's what they tend to do. Bill Belichick, throughout his career, has said, if a team can beat me with their third, fourth, fifth options, I'm going to let them do that. That's how he rolls his defense. It's dangerous against this Falcons team because you guys have those third, fourth, fifth weapons that can actually make plays, that won't choke in the big moment or, yet to be seen in the Super Bowl, but have not choked yet in the big moments they've had this year. I think that one of the biggest matchups outside of that is going to be to see how the Patriots cover the running backs of the Falcons. That's my X factor in this game. Julio's going to get his, no matter who you put on him. Mohamed Sanu, most likely going to get his as well. He's a very talented receiver. He's a guy I wish the Patriots would have taken.
Sorry, it's just funny to me because Aaron all season has been like, no, Mohamed Sanu's not worth that contract. Mohamed Sanu's not that good.
He's not worth the contract, but he's talented.
I mean,
he's a guy.
It's 20% more than what he was supposed to probably get paid. The cap went up to a record level. That's why he got that 20%. Aaron and most other Falcons fans, including myself, were like, oh, man, the contract's just a little too much. But for what he's brought to the team, it's been worth it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at, kind of what I'm talking about and saying he'll get his as a second receiver, are you going to trust him or a guy like Will Fuller when the Patriots played Houston, who had touchdown hit him in the hands that would have changed the game, and it literally hit him in the hands and, he just didn't close his hands? I would trust Sanu more, but how the Falcons use those running backs against Dante Hightower, Kyle Van Noy, Shea McClellan, these guys who either are unproven or not good in coverage, is really going to be the difference in this game, in my opinion.
I completely agree because the big issue that I don't see that the Patriots have in coverage is linebackers that are fast enough to really handle the Falcons running backs.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. That's why, something that I've been kind of tossing around and I'm going to put up at some point this week is that you may see the Patriots go big nickel against this Falcons team, where Patrick Chung is almost playing down a linebacker role, and then Deron Harmon and Devin McCourty are playing in the safety positions. That's their best shot if they want to match up against Freeman and Coleman in the passing game, because those guys out of the backfield, people don't give them enough credit. I mean, Tevin Coleman averaged 13.6 or 13.8 yards per reception this year as a running back, which is just – it's stupid. There's no way a running back should be doing that and making an impact. If it's 13.6 yards per catch, but he has like 5 catches, that's one thing. I think he had, 30 catches and was averaging close to 14 yards a catch. He's a dynamic –
31.
So I think you might see a little bit of that, but that opens up some running lanes. So it's going to be very interesting. Like I said, it's a chess match. A lot of people want to say like, oh, the Falcons, they're not ready. They're not there yet. I disagree with whoever's saying that. It's a talented team, and this is going to be a closer game than people expect here in New England and nationally. I know that you guys expect a close game. You guys probably, I'd assume are taking the Falcons to win.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that later, but yeah.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Let's put it this way. Coming into the playoffs and coming into the season, I was like, man, this Falcons team, they're a 10-6 team, and they'll go to the playoffs. And Aaron was like, no, you're being optimistic.
Yes, I was like that. I thought they were 8-8 at best.
I mean, and I tend to get within about a game of my prediction outside of like last year, which was just awful. Yeah, last year when they collapsed. But to be fair, they've much improved from last year. The defense has way overperformed what I thought they'd be doing, especially the last part of the season. But no, not even I was saying just making the playoffs was going to be the step forward this year. And the fact that they're in the Super Bowl is huge to me.
Yeah, I mean, they're ahead of schedule. There's no doubt about that. I think that when I looked at this Falcons team coming into the year, I thought they were somewhere I actually think I predicted between the two of you. I think I had them at 9 wins on the season, and they went above and beyond that. They took advantage of, the Carolina Panthers coming down to earth after last season. But, when you have a team that's so young, so laden with rookies and second-year players on your defense, you don't always do that. You don't always take that step when somebody else falters. It's a credit to Dan Quinn and Kyle Shanahan that they did that. They made that step. And I think that the big thing is here, the inexperience could come back and get them a little bit here. Tom Brady has more Super Bowl appearances than the Falcons have Super Bowl experience or playoff experience on their roster coming into the year, I believe. It was Super Bowl experience. But, one player on the Patriots has more Super Bowl experience than the entire Falcons roster. That's going to be something to watch. Do they get too up in the moment? Some of these young guys, do they get worn out with that 20-minute pregame, the 30-minute halftime, the long commercial breaks? That's something to keep an eye on. I think Quinn has done a pretty good job keeping his guys they seem calm down in Houston. They don't seem like they're out of their element. That's a good thing to see if you're a Falcons fan.
Yeah, I think it really bodes well for this team just because Quinn's been there twice. And even though the team doesn't have a lot of playoff experience, and certainly outside of Dwight Freeney, there isn't a whole lot of Super Bowl experience on this roster, but the coach has a lot of Super Bowl experience. Most coaches dream of getting to 1 Super Bowl. He's been to 2. He's won 1. He's been instrumental in winning one of those Super Bowls against the Broncos when he was the coordinator of the Seahawks. So I do think the idea, this sort of conventional notion that the Falcons are new and won't be ready for the moment, I think is a little bit overblown. Obviously, we'll see if that's true or not. We'll see, what sort of hiccups occur in the game. Obviously, we know Belichick's been there, so if there's going to be coaching mistakes, probably the safer bet will be that the Falcons will make them. But I don't feel like that's going to be a real hindrance on this team coming up. And I think it's really, we're going to actually get to see a very close matchup get played out in the field. And I think obviously I have my bias and think the Falcons are going to win the game. But I really do think, in an objective way, it's a sort of a toss-up game. I think it's 2 evenly matched teams that, this game will be made or broken by who wins this game by a couple of plays here or there, maybe a red zone stop here, maybe a turnover here, maybe a big special teams play here or something like that. And it's going to be those types of plays that really make the difference in this game just because of, I think, how evenly matched these teams are going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I think that there are 2 sets of coaches that really they emphasize that all 3 phases, and both defenses, may have had their stats against some weaker competition this year. I know the Patriots did. I've dug into the Falcons a fairly decent amount. Their defense grew at the end of the year, but some down competition may have led them to look a little better. But the way they've looked in these playoffs, they're definitely improved. Same with the Patriots. really I think where it comes down to is that defensive matchup, because both teams have prolific offenses. I mean, you don't get better than the Falcons' offense this year. They were incredible, and they're firing on all cylinders. Special teams, they both have, they're not necessarily the big playmaking special teams units, but they're solid. They're going to flip the field when they need to. They're going to hit their field goals when they need to. It's the minutia like that wins the Super Bowl. So when you really look at it, you're probably right. It's probably closer to who's going to make that one turnover that's going to break the game open for one team or the other.
Yeah. Now, talking about some of these matchups, and you mentioned one that I'll be curious to see with the Patriots, if they're going to choose to play a lot more dime this week with Chung basically acting as that linebacker to help sort of cover the Falcons running backs out of the backfield. And I do think if that's a way that they go, and one counter for the Falcons may be, it's like, we'll put we'll spread the field with 5 guys. We'll split Coleman or Freeman out, and we'll make the Patriots have to play that dime, which will soften up the box a little bit, where I think the Patriots' strength of their defense is. The big thing that the Patriots are going to want to do this week is stop the run, because if you can make the Falcons' offense one-dimensional, it does take a lot of the things that they do well really away from them, like the play action, like the misdirection, and especially if you can stop the run, you can do a lot of damage against the Falcons when it comes to getting a stop in the red zone if you can not give up those yards. And I think that's the strength of the Patriots' defense, and so that's going to be an interesting chess match. How do you feel about whether this Patriots front 7 is going to be able to do their job to slow down guys like Freeman and Coleman on the ground?
Well, I think that's actually something the Patriots have really improved on throughout the year. There were some down periods. There were some times where they were getting gashed by some lesser running backs, but Alan Branch has emerged to be, a game plan ruiner in the middle. I don't know what got into him this year, but he's kind of taken that front 7 on his back. And then you've had Malcolm Brown, who's really been up and down, but in the playoffs he's been terrific. And even Vincent Valentine, the Patriots' 4th-round pick this year, wasn't much expected from him. He made one of the biggest plays of the playoffs when he made a big stop on the goal line against Pittsburgh. I think you have those guys, and then, Dante Hightower is going to play a role. I don't know exactly what the role is because he was very sparsely used against Pittsburgh. Once Le'Veon Bell went out, the Patriots won a lot with Kyle Van Noy. But I think if the Falcons are going to come out and they're going to try to run, the Patriots are going to come out with Hightower. That's when you have the chess match. That's when the Falcons can go and they can maybe pop a screen pass that'll get by him. But in terms of stopping the run, I think that the Patriots, not that they're going to let the Falcons gash them on the ground, they're probably going to play a little bit of a lighter front, a little bit more spread out to stop the big plays in the pass. They want to. What the Patriots have done all year and what they've kind of excelled at is limiting teams in the red zone. They'll let teams go 20-20 often, but once they get into the red zone, that's when you really see them clamp down. So I wouldn't be shocked if Devontae Freeman had a good game in terms of stats. If he rattles off 89 yards, I would not be in the least bit shocked. But I'd be shocked if he got 2 or 3 touchdowns, because that's when they're going to kind of clamp back on him. They're not going to let those big plays, because they let guys, they get behind guys and they come forward and tackle, and they're a very sure tackling team. And it's going to be that, like I said, this is where the chess match becomes. Can Dante Hightower be on the field, and can the Falcons then take advantage of him in coverage with a play action, with a screen, anything like that, something to trick him and make the Patriots take him off the field? Because when he's off the field, the run defense is much weaker.
I think
I
think the big thing with Devontae Freeman, with Tevin Coleman, is the fact that they can both catch the ball out of the backfield or even split out wide. And Atlanta could have a key like, hey, Hightower's in the game, split them out. Hey, Hightower's in the game. Maybe there's a certain key that they call, and that's when they call the audible for a better fit for that play. Like, hey, maybe this is when we run the play action, or maybe, hey, this is when we run that slant.
Yeah,
quick slant to Julio.
Yeah, you could definitely see that. And I think that it's similar to what the Patriots did last week. It kind of became the thing of folklore during the game. They come out on the first play of the game. They have James Devlin in, and they have Dion Lewis in. Tom Brady gets the line, yells Jordan. Everybody splits out wide. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Falcons do something very similar when they see the Patriots' base defense on the field. But when that's the case, I think you'll see the Patriots go to more of a zone. They'll drop back, and like I said, they'll let the guys catch the ball underneath. They let Pittsburgh do that a little bit, and let the guy catch the ball underneath on that slant, but you have to be sure to tackle him. And Julio's a tough guy to tackle, as is Sanu and Gabriel. All these guys can break plays. Even Coleman and Freeman out of the backfield can break these plays. The big key, and this is going to sound like the hashtag analysis here, you have to bring these guys down on first contact. You can't let Julio break a 12-yard gain into an 80-yard touchdown. It's happened a couple of times, and it's mostly credit to Julio because he'll break through 2-3 guys and take it 80 yards. You just can't have that happen. One guy's got to hang on for dear life, and the rest of the team has to come around and get it.
Yeah. I think that's really – I think you could say that about both teams, really, where guys like Edelman, even Amendola, I know he's not a huge part of their offense, but his sort of quickness after the catch. Martellus Bennett is a big physical tight end that's really hard to bring down in the open field. I think it goes for both defenses, and I think the Falcons are sort of banking on their defensive speed, not their sort of individual tackling. And I think the Patriots, because of the arguably, but maybe you don't agree, Matt, but the superior offensive speed that the Falcons have with their running backs, with their wide receivers against some slower Patriots linebackers and whatnot. The Falcons are sort of banking on their speed on both sides of the ball being superior and sort of overcoming sort of maybe a little bit more of a disciplined sort of style from the Patriots, where they're going to be a little bit more reliant on individual players making stops in the open field, while the Falcons are going to just be like, everybody run to a spot and everybody meet at the ball carrier. Deion Jones is not going to be able to tackle LeGarrette Blount one-on-one. But if Deion Jones can hold him up and then get help from Andre Campbell and Keanu Neal and those guys, then it will be they'll be able to bring down Blount, guys like that.
Yeah, the only thing that with a speed-based defense, something that you might have to worry about a little bit, and I haven't seen a ton of this from the Falcons, but this is the kind of thing that Julian Edelman likes to do. He likes to make guys over pursuit. He likes to get guys to take that bite, and then he makes a quick cut or he ducks underneath them. Same with Dion Lewis and James White. They're guys that they're not going to get you a ton of yards after the catch. They'll get you decent yards after catch, but those speed defenses, that's what the Patriots like to do. They like to get them to over pursuit and then break that 4-yard gain to a 10-yard gain and just keep chipping away. The Falcons are very aggressive from what I've seen. They use that speed and they hit hard, especially, you have Keanu Neal coming up. The kid is as advertised. He's a missile. He's been very good, but, when you get into this situation, is that speed going to come back to bite him against a veteran-laden team that has seen these speed defenses before? I think obviously you want to use that speed. Both sides of the ball, the Falcons are a faster team. Not to say the Patriots are slow, but they rely more on quickness, more on, their structure. The Patriots are a very structured offense, a very structured defense. They're going to chip away at you, not let the big play happen, not let the big mistake happen, and hope that they can chip away and make you make 12, 15 plays in a row rather than trying to break those one big plays and hope that you make that mistake.
I agree with that. I think this is going to be an interesting game just because I think the Patriots, in terms of what they're going to try to do offensively, is they're going to want to attack. The Falcons are faster, but they're also young. And I think they're going to hope and sort of scheme a way where they can attack the Falcons' youth, particularly in the middle of their defense, with guys like Keanu Neal, with guys like Deion Jones and Devondre Campbell and whatnot, and even Brian Poole, the nickel cornerback, who's probably going to be covering the slot quite a bit. It's one of those things where, I think that's where the Patriots going to be we can win there. and we're going to be able to slow this game down. We're going to mix a healthy dose of the run. I'm curious, Matt, what do you think about the Patriots' sort of strategy of saying, okay, we can't really stop the Falcons for 4 quarters, so we're going to slow the game down. We're going to run the football. We're going to bleed clock. We're going to get these long 10, 12 play drives, go 80 yards, put the ball in the end zone, bleed, 6-7 minutes off the clock. We saw Seattle do that successfully against the Falcons in that game early, and then they sort of quickly abandoned the run and sort of tried to get into the track meet with Atlanta. I don't think the Patriots can win a track meet. So do you feel like their strategy is sort of contingent on slowing the game down and making the Falcons play their style as opposed to trying to outmatch the Falcons in their own style?
Well, this is where the Tom Brady factor comes in. The Patriots can go in with a game plan, and it can change in a matter of seconds. They can completely scrap it and go with what Brady wants to do. If he sees something in the defense, that's what he's going to switch to. And I know all quarterbacks can do that. Not all quarterbacks do that as proficiently as Brady. I think that the Patriots are going to want to run a little bit of clock here. But again, I think, like I've said a couple times now, they're going to want to let the plays happen underneath, come up and tackle. But offensively, I think that's always been their game plan. They're going to go 10, 12, 14 plays. They're going to run a decent amount of time off the clock. I don't think you're going to see this, hyper speed offense that everybody seems to want. And the Patriots broke it out against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And everybody freaked out because they've been calling for it for 2 years. And I just don't think that's what you do in this game. You don't try to outrun the Falcons. If you do that, it gets the Patriots away from what they do best, and that's limiting teams at what they do best. And the Falcons want to get out. They want to get moving quick. They want to use their speed. They want to use their weapons, and they want to go, 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 go. Patriots need to kind of handcuff them as much as they can by slowing it down, by having Brady use methodical drives.
Yeah. I think for any college basketball fans, like I would compare this matchup to like UNC and Duke. Like when UNC has been their best at basketball over the years under Roy Williams, they get up and running up and down the court, and they play this sort of fast break, full court offense. And Duke style tends to be a little bit more of a half court style. We're going to slow the game down. And when you look at when UNC's in that matchup between those two teams, when UNC's been in top or when Duke has been in top now, over the last couple of years, it's been more Duke than UNC. But it's one of those things where I feel like, the Falcons in this scenario, the UNC, they're going to want to run that fast break offense and sort of make this game into a track meet because the Falcons have been the best team in the league at playing that style of football. They're the most explosive offense. They obviously score points and bunches, and their offense is geared towards doing that. New England, I don't think, is really geared to that. Maybe if they had Gronk, they might be able to play that style a little bit better, but they don't have Gronk, so, they can't. And so I think they're going to want to play that little bit more of that Duke style half-court offense that's going to slow the game down. And I think, we'll find out on Sunday which team is able to accomplish that better. But I think, whoever can set the tempo early in this game, whoever can win the first quarter, the quarter and a half, I think will be at a significant advantage as the game wears on.
I agree with you on that one. I think the Falcons really do need to take control of the tempo. If they can get up early, if they can if they can basically get up real early and force the Patriots to pass a lot more, and force the Patriots to abandon their running game and get up, say, 14-0, I think Atlanta stands a much better chance at winning than if they basically just say, oh, hey, here's a touchdown. We're going to spot it to you like we spotted the Seahawks. Or, oh, hey, here's this. I want to see him do a 21-0 kind of situation.
Yeah, I think that, if you get any team one-dimensional like that, that's when they can start using their speed. That's when you would see Vic Beasley, Brooks Reed, those kind of guys, Jared on the inside. That's when they would kind of be able to take over. They'd be able to pin their ears back and get after Brady. And we've seen that throughout this playoffs in New England. We've seen that the Patriots can get beat on their line. Their tackle play has been fantastic. It's been the left side of the interior offensive line. It's been Joe Thuney and David Andrews that have struggled a little bit. And the Falcons, I think that Quinn is smart enough to change things up a little bit. I don't think he's for your guys' sake, I'm hoping he's not one of these guys that does what Mike Tomlin did, where he says, I'm going to do what I do, and I'm going to come in and do it, because we all saw what happens there. If you try to do what you do against Bill Belichick and the Patriots, they're going to exploit you. They're going to do exactly that. I think that Quinn is smart enough to change things up a little bit and get a guy like, even a guy like Deion Jones to come up the middle. And it's something you don't see a ton of. Get a guy like Vic Beasley to move around a little bit, not just line up on the outside and go against Marcus Cannon all night and kind of just hope for that battle. I think that if they can get up early, it's a very beneficial thing for them, because that's when you can exploit some of these weaknesses of the Patriots. But on the other hand, it's funny, the Patriots, if they get up early, that's when I think the Falcons are made to make that comeback. But is the moment going to be big, too big? That's when the moment comes back into it, if you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If the Falcons are down, say, 14-3, 10 minutes into the game, is it going to be one of those things where you see them start to press a little bit and some of these young guys start to say, we got to make a play, and that's when you see a fumble happen, or that's when you see a costly, missed tackle that goes for a big play? It's going to be interesting. I don't think either team's really going to pull away in this one. Obviously, from my end, I'd love to see the Patriots do it. I just don't think that either team is going to give up enough that this game's going to get out of control.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We know the Patriots know how to make adjustments. We know that. So even if the Falcons get up early, it will help them, and I think it'll be something that they can sort of use to their advantage. But you're not going to be able to knock out the Patriots in the first quarter of the game. You're going to have to play 4 quarters against them. And I think the Falcons have shown over the course of this season that they're the same sort of team. Obviously, they don't have the sort of pedigree that the Patriots have in that. And so I think it's easier for people to doubt them in that way. But I do feel like throughout the season, we've seen this team, this team has dominated the third quarter of games throughout this entire year. That's been their best quarter. That's when they've played their best football consistently week in, week out, because of their ability to make adjustments. And I think you will see that as well, even if the Patriots do get off to a good start and sort of can make the Falcons a little bit one-dimensional. I don't think this is a team that you can knock out in the first quarter in a similar fashion. So I do think this is a game that probably will boil down to the final few possessions in the fourth quarter. And, it will be, it may or may not be, but I think I would bet on it that, this will be remembered as a very good Super Bowl, where it ranks in sort of the history of Super Bowl games. But I do think it's going to have a lot of a dramatic finish, just because I think these are two really good teams, neither of whom are going to get blown out in this game, even if they start off slow. I think it's going to make for a fantastic game.
Yeah, and Vegas agrees with you. The line hasn't moved from 3 yet. And when you look at the Patriots Super Bowl history, every game, with the exception of, the Bears way back when, before I was born, is 3 points there, and the Packers too. But I was around for that, but I was just a little guy. In the Brady Belichick era, if they make it to the Super Bowl, it's a close game. It's 3 points, one way or the other. It's a 3 to 7 point struggle, and I think that's what's going to come down to again. I think that, for all the gamblers out there, this is a game that you want to take all the prop bets. You don't want to take the actual line on this one, because it's going to come down something's going to happen in the fourth quarter that swings it one way or the other.
I tend to agree there. And hopefully that something is, I don't know, a Vic Beasley strip sack, or like Keanu Neal coming in on a blitz and just lighting Brady up. I know you're a Pats guy. I know you're a Pats guy, but I would love to see Keanu Neal come in on a blitz in an A gap and just light Brady up. I'm not saying take him out of the game, but I'm saying make him feel it. Make it to where he has that thought process going through his head, like, man, that hit hurt all day.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fans around the country that feel the same way. And if that can happen, I mean, it's, I'm a Patriots guy, but if that happens, that's when he gets off his game a little bit. That's when you see, a couple of years ago it was much more prevalent. You've rarely seen it the past year and a half, but it was called the Brady tuck. There'd be anyone around him, he'd tuck down. He would take that sack, he would sit down. You haven't seen it a lot this year. I mean, what Tom Brady's been able to do to reinvent himself in the pocket has been nothing short of amazing. But Matt, if they can get to him, and they have the guys that can get to him, make him feel it between Beasley, Neal, Brooks Reed, Hageman, any of these guys can get to him and deliver a big hit with their speed. That would bode very well for the Falcons. They need to get after Brady and they need to hit him. It's not, getting in his face isn't going to do anything. If anything, that kind of motivates him. You have to hit him. You have to bring him to the ground.
Yeah. Matt, I'm curious, are there any other matchups that we haven't talked about that you're really intrigued to see in this upcoming game?
I think that the coverage on Julian Edelman is going to be a very interesting one. Is it going to be Poole? I just don't see Poole being able to stick with Edelman for an entire game, and I don't see Collins or any of the outside guys really being the answer. I think that he's a guy that the Falcons are probably going to have to shade a little bit of coverage to. He's been tremendous over the second half of the season. Since the Seahawks loss, he's averaged about a little over 7 receptions on 10 targets a game, over 100 yards. He's been scoring at will. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Falcons cover him. It's, kind of mirroring Julio Jones has also been – it's really been Edelman and Jones have been dominating the league since about week 9. And I think that if the Patriots can have Julian Edelman be that reliable guy and move the chains, if he's going one-on-one against Poole, it's going to be a long night for Poole because Edelman's healthy. I think that the Falcons are going to have to throw a couple different things at him, kind of clog the middle of the field, not let Edelman get going. And I'd be interested to see, you guys know the team a lot better than I do. It'd be interesting to see how they're going to be able to attack the slot guys and not leave somebody like Chris Hogan to get open or Danny Amendola to patrol the other side of the field and get them.
Chris Hogan. Is it me or is Chris Hogan being kind of elevated more than what he probably should be? I feel like if you put Jalen Collins on him one-on-one, he's shut down.
It can definitely happen. He's been playing the best football of his career over the past, I'd say, 5 weeks. He came back from an injury and he's been really good. He is what he is. He's not going to burn you. He's a guy who takes advantage of kind of the openings, and he's had a lot of them over the past couple of weeks because the focus has gone to Julian Edelman. When the focus turns to Edelman, that's when you see a guy like Hogan kind of just sit in the middle of his zone, pick up that 15, 20-yard gain. Throughout the playoffs, he's been averaging about 20 yards a catch, which is it's insane. He's close to that for the season as well. And it's really been when he gets solo coverage or is going against his own. So that's why, that slot matchup kind of affects everything else. If Edelman starts getting going and the Falcons have to roll coverage there, that opens up a guy like Hogan or a guy like Mitchell who, like you said, if everything is equal, he's not, a dynamic receiver. He's not even Mohamed Sanu, I don't think, in terms of skill set. But he's one of those guys that Bill Belichick saw and said, he is a perfect fit in my offense. And Tom Brady had trust in him very early. And it's shown throughout the season. They trust him. They're going to get him the ball when they need to. He's reliable. He's not special.
Matt, he's better than Mohamed Sanu, but I'll leave that for another day. But
No, he's not.
He is, but it's fine. I think we got a mailbag question about this Edelman matchup, and Kelvin Jackson asked, do you think they put Collins on Hogan, Alfred on Edelman, or Neal on Bennett? I think that's probably the best strategy. I do feel like as Scott says, I do think Jalen Collins can handle Hogan. I think the issue with Jalen Collins is sort of deep passing, and that's where Hogan has really sort of shined over the last couple of weeks. So I do feel like Hogan can maybe get 1 or 2 big plays on Jalen Collins because he seems to give up 1 big play a game. But I do feel like other than that, maybe that 1 play, I'm not too worried about Chris Hogan in this game. I think Edelman is going to be the key matchup. I think if the Falcons are smart, they're going to have Alford cover Edelman, shadow him throughout this game. They've been using Alford in that way since Desmond Trufant's been out. Alford has played as well. I think outside of, this year, I don't think he's played poor at all. The penalties have been something that people have complained about, but they haven't really been that big of a deal for the second half of the season. So I do feel like the Patriots strategy is going to be, if that's the case, then whoever Brian Poole is going to be covering, whether that's Malcolm Mitchell, whether that's Amendola, whether that's Michael Floyd in that scenario, I do feel like they're going to target Brian Poole quite a bit. And so back to that earlier point I made about the Falcons, the Patriots going after some of the Falcons rookies, I do feel like that's going to be a big part of the Patriots strategy. No offense to Brian Poole, I just don't think any of those receivers are really a great matchup for him. He's more of an off-zone corner, an off-man corner, and that's sort of conceding a little bit of what the Patriots are going to try to do with that match. So not to say that he's a liability, but I do feel like he could be probably the weakest link in the Falcons secondary in this upcoming game. But I do feel like the Falcons going to, for the most part, and play a lot of man coverage, because I think they do feel like at least two, if not all three of the Patriots' main receivers, that they can get a pretty good matchup against Edelman and Hogan with Collins and Alford.
Yeah, my only thing looking at it is, and like I said, you guys probably have a much better read seeing Alford all season than I do. He just doesn't seem like the guy who is going to be going into, on those crossing patterns and then that cutback, when Edelman takes him into the middle and then pops back out. He didn't seem like the guy who sticks with the quicker guys as well. He seems like a guy who, some of the faster receivers, the guys who are looking to get vertical, is where he just takes them and absolutely closes them out. And I might be wrong on that, but that'd be my only worry if I was a Falcons fan on seeing Alford on Edelman, is those short areas, especially once you get into the red zone, that short area quickness. Does Alford have the same amount as Edelman?
And that's where I'm kind of thinking they might shift it up if Edelman's in the slot and just keep Poole in his slot role, because I think that might be his best fit. And I think Poole has done a great job in that slot fit.
Yeah. I like Poole. I think he has some building blocks to be a good player down the road. Him on Edelman one-on-one, I think that'd be
he would never be one-on-one. He would have safety help, probably
okay.
Rico.
That would make more sense. And then, it's kind of the same thought I have with when people are saying Eric Rowe is going to cover Julio Jones. If you do that and you leave him out on an island against Julio, even if you have safety help, it's going to be a long night. You may be seeing the Lombardi go the other way. I think if you rely too much on Poole on Edelman, I think it could go the wrong way for you guys. I think it has to be kind of like the Falcons have to do similar to what the Patriots are going to do, and that's change up the coverage on one guy. So the Patriots are going to have to change it up on Julio from drive to drive, play to play even. I think the Falcons are going to have to change it up drive to drive on Edelman. Otherwise, Brady's going to get in that rhythm with him. We saw it a couple years ago in the Super Bowl. Once he gets in that rhythm, that fourth quarter of the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, it was Edelman and Brady. That was all it was. And if the Patriots can get in that rhythm, it'd be a long day for the Falcons defense.
Yeah. Yeah, the Patriots will definitely, if they can exploit a weakness, they will definitely find it and try to do their best to exploit it. Okay, let's move on to our main mailbag questions. We got a couple of Patriot ones that I think, Matt, you can sort of answer. The first one is from @MattStars. He asks, what is New England's biggest weakness, their interior offensive line? If so, does that bode well for Grady and Hageman?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. I wrote about it today, actually, on NFL Spin Zone. Joe Thuney and David Andrews have been a problem. You saw Merciless and Clowney get all over them. That's where all the pressure came from in the Houston game. And you saw Javon Hargrave early in the Steelers game kind of, he got after Tom Brady. He threw Joe Thuney away. When that game got out of hand, those problems weren't noticed nearly as much. They're definitely run-heavy guys, those two guys in particular. That the Falcons' speed is something that could give them a little bit of trouble.
Yeah. I think the Falcons, have had good D tackle play over the last couple of weeks in the playoffs and then late in the season. So I feel like they won't it won't be as problematic as it was early in the season when you could have made the argument that the Falcons D tackle situation was one of the biggest weaknesses on the roster. But I do think the Falcons are going to try to attack that interior offensive line, get guys like Hageman, who is a big, powerful bully on the inside, and sort of go after Tooney in the same way that Hargrave did. And I think the Falcons are also going to use a lot of twists to get guys like Freeney and Brooks Reed and Vic Beasley one-on-one against some of those interior guys and see if they can exploit them that way, because I think that's going to be their biggest pathway to getting after the quarterback, just because, I think Freeney can beat Solder, but I think Cannon is their best pass protector, and I think Solder's probably their second best pass protector. And, I think that's just asking those guys on the edge to get after Brady won't be as successful as the interior guys.
Yeah, and if you said that a year ago, people would have told you you were stupid. Last year we saw Von Miller single-handedly beat double, triple teams against the Patriots tackles. Marcus Cannon was terrible last year. He's come back and in my mind been arguably the most improved player, not only on the Patriots but in the NFL. He lost about 30 pounds. He's come out and he's played at an all-pro level. It's been unbelievable to see what Dante Scarnecchia has done with him.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the most improved players in the league. So I would agree with that. Matt, do you have time for one more question?
Yeah, I got one more for you. I can do one more for you here.
All right. Well, this one comes from D-Rock the Party. He asks, is this the worst Patriots team under Belichick to make a Super Bowl, or do you think it's another one?
No. Go look at that 2011 team. They were playing Matt Slater and Julian Edelman in the secondary at that point. This team is far better than that team, even when you had Gronkowski and Hernandez. Gronkowski was a shell of himself that day. It took about 3 plays into the game for the Giants to start screaming out, 87's a decoy, 87's a decoy. You were throwing the ball to guys like Matt Slater. You were having Edelman play on defense. They were decimated. Their offensive line was injured. That was the worst Super Bowl team they had going into the Super Bowl. This one, probably second worst, but pretty big jump up from that 11 team.
Yeah, that 11 team had no business being in the Super Bowl.
Nope, none whatsoever. I'll agree to that. They lost to a better team that day. People don't want to hear that, and you're not going to hear many Patriots people say that, but that Giants team got on a roll late, and they were better than the Patriots that season. And the fact that it came down to a Hail Mary at the end of the game, that goes back to, and I don't want to sound like, Pat Patriot over here. That goes back to Tom Brady and what he's able to do in this game. He just elevates his game so much, and it's, it's a great thing to see. We're seeing a generational quarterback, and, can you expect that from him every time, though? Is he eventually due for a bad Super Bowl? He had one in 2007. The rest of them have been okay.
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for Brady to have that Super Bowl where he finally just has a bad game and gets sacked 3 times and throws a pick to Deion Jones and throws a pick to Keanu Neal, and maybe Alford gets one too.
Yeah,
one of those kind of days.
I know you guys want it. I just don't see it. The way he's playing this year, and he had a terrible game against Houston. He did. He was horrible in that game. But then he came back and had arguably his best playoff performance he's ever had against Pittsburgh. I know it's a different Falcons team. They're much faster than Pittsburgh. They're going to change things up a little bit, but I just don't see Tom Brady having two real duds in one playoff season.
Yeah. I wouldn't bet on it either, but as like Scott said, I would love to see it. Matt, go ahead and plug your stuff. Tell us if you got any upcoming articles coming this week, and tell people where they can find you on Twitter.
So I'm on Twitter at Matt_LaPan, LAPAN. You can find me there. I'm willing to interact with Falcons fans, Patriots fans, anybody that like come at me. I generally try to be pretty objective. I'm not going to just say, oh, the Falcons suck, they're not going to make, you'll hear a lot of that out of Boston. You're not going to hear that out of me. So head up there. I'm doing some draft work. Just released the top 5 positional rankings for both offense and defense on NFL Spin Zone. as well as Super Bowl coverage throughout the week and throughout next week as well. Win-loss, whatever it is, I'm going to be covering the Patriots there. And hopefully I'll be back on with you guys. Win or loss, I can come back on with you guys next week, and we can break this baby down.
I'd enjoy that.
Yeah.
And now I'll give you my prediction, too. I'll give it to you. 33-30. Patriots win on a late Steven Gostkowski field goal. I think the Falcons make it a game. I respect the hell out of this Falcons team, but I think the Patriots have just enough to pull it out in the end.
Okay.
Not popular
All
on
right,
this podcast, I know, but that's what I'm going with.
It took me a minute to process that. I was shocked to hear it on the show. Where can people find you on Patriot Central Radio?
Patriot Central Radio. So we're going to be recording tomorrow night. You can hear that Thursday morning. Myself and Evan Lazar going to be breaking down, going from the Patriots' point of view on the Super Bowl. I know that Scott and Evan got into it. We had an MVP show, and Scott came on. Scott and Evan got into it a little bit. But
that's because Brady shouldn't win the MVP because he missed 4 games and because Matt Ryan had a better season than him.
Oh, yeah, I mean, in the end, we both agreed. We both said Matt Ryan should be the MVP, but you and Evan got into it on that whole 12 games versus 16 games thing. I think you'll see Matt Ryan be the MVP of the league. So we'll be there. We'll be recording tomorrow, breaking it down, getting into the X's and O's a little further, some of the matchups like we have tonight, but going at it from a little bit more of a pro-Patriots angle. And then next week we'll hopefully be I'll hopefully be going to a parade and getting some audio from there, and then hopefully having that next week. If not, it'll be a very sad Patriot Central Radio next week.
Okay. All right. Well, Matt, we appreciate you giving us your time. Hopefully we get you back on next week, and we'll talk about this game, and hopefully it will be civil regardless of the outcome of this game. But someone's going to be a little disappointed. It's going to be a sad show for somebody. That's all I know.
Definitely. All right, guys. Thanks. Enjoy the Super Bowl.
All right. You too, man.
You too.
All right, guys. We got a couple more mailbag questions that we want to wrap up, and that'll be our show tonight. I know some of you might be tuning in that didn't tune in last week. We got a bunch of mailbag questions about this matchup, so if we don't get to everything, then you can just go back to profootballcentral.com and check out last week's show, and you'll be able to get a bunch of answers. I think we did a 2-hour show, so definitely
last week's will be some.
Yeah. We'll answer what's left on deck tonight, and if you're not satisfied, then go check out last week's show, and then we definitely probably answered. We've answered literally every question. Definitely by the end of the night, we'll answer every question in this game. So the first one comes from your boy J94. How can we confuse Devin McCourty and Patrick Chung?
I mean, the best way to confuse McCourty and Chung is to put a guy on Chung and say, hey, let's have Austin Hooper go against Chung every play. I don't think Chung is that good. I know a lot of people like him. I don't think he's that good. I don't ever really think he was going to be that good. I don't get what's so great about Patrick Chung. And people are like, oh man, that's a guy you got to make sure you get around. That's a guy you got to make sure you attack, or you make sure that you watch out for it. He's not that good.
Yeah, I think the strength of Patrick Chung is his versatility, because he can be a little bit of a safety, a linebacker, or a cornerback for you. I think that he's a valuable role player for a team. I don't think he's a difference maker in sort of the sense of he's a guy that's out there, that scares you by any means, certainly not from an offensive perspective. I do think the Falcons can attack him. But I think the value of a guy like Chung, he can cover Austin Hooper, he can cover Levine Toilolo. Probably can't cover Tevin Coleman, but he can probably cover Devontae Freeman reasonably well, and sort of be that sort of movable chess piece that they can use to try to match up with the Falcons as best they can. I don't think he's going to shut down anybody by any means, but I don't think you can really confusing them. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be sort of what the Falcons can do. I just think you have to exploit the mismatches that will inevitably come. I think McCourty is going to primarily be playing over the top, and I don't think it's necessarily you're confusing him. I just think you're sort of, if he's going to shade over to Julio's side of the field when he's playing that deep safety, then that's going to create opportunities for the guy that's lined up opposite that side. So you're not really confusing McCourty. You're just exploiting the areas of the field that he's not in. And I think it's the same way with Chung. You're not necessarily confusing him. You're just when Austin Hooper gets open against him, or when Devontae Freeman or Tevin Coleman gets open against him, then you're just attacking him. And I don't know if it's going to be more of a confusing thing. I just think it's going to come down to out executing them. Matt Stars asks, Ryan spoke with Eli and Peyton recently regarding the Super Bowl and the Patriots. Curious who you think had the best intel.
I'm going to go with probably Peyton Manning. I realize that Eli has beaten the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl. I get it. I understand that. But I think Peyton Manning's beaten them, 3 times, 4 times in the playoffs? Unless I'm missing something here.
Yeah, look, I think you're right, Scott. I don't think you're getting intel from Eli. No offense to Eli, but I don't think he's really giving you the scoop on what the Patriots are likely to do. I think that's more Peyton's wheelhouse. So if you're looking for more, better intel, I think Peyton's going to give it to you. Obviously, you can learn some things from Eli, but I think Eli beat the Patriots because of great defense on those Giants teams and just making some ridiculous throws in some of those games, like the Tyree catch, that big throw he made to Manningham in the 2011 Super Bowl. It's not necessarily he's out scheming them. He's just making some great throws. Matt Stars' next question is, did you get a chance to watch the Pats' only loss with Tom Brady? What were you able to learn from it, and what could the Falcons mimic?
Oh, man. You mean that Seahawks game?
Yeah.
The thing that worked in that Seahawks game is they were able to limit the Patriots' running game. And I understand that Tom Brady is Tom Brady, but the Patriots running game, and you can limit Rob Gronkowski, which they won't have Gronkowski. It definitely helps out. They have played a little different since that loss, but I don't think their defense is great. I know they're the number 1 scoring defense, and I'm going to keep harping on this until they actually play them. I just don't think the Patriots defense is what it used to be. I mean, they won against the Texans. Yeah, they held them to 16. Yeah, the Steelers have a much better offense, and they held them to 17. But game, I'm looking at this Little Sisters of the Poor grouping of quarterbacks that they played, like the Matt Moores of the world, the Andy Daltons, the Browns, Tyrod Taylor, Colin Kaepernick, whoever the Jets decided to throw out there as their next victim, Jared Goff, who the Falcons just obliterated. I mean, Flacco, who's just meh. Simeon, who's garbage. I mean, I'm just not seeing a team that's really been challenged on defense by an offense that's anywhere close to Atlanta. Now, granted, there's not an offense here, but the way to beat Tom Brady is to keep him off the fucking field. It's the same way that they beat Russell Wilson. It's the same way they beat Aaron Rodgers. Get a lead, keep those motherfuckers off the field, and keep scoring touchdowns. Because when you're up 21-0 at halftime, 28-0 at halftime, 24-0 at halftime, and then you get the ball back and you score another touchdown, that's a big deal. And I think that is the kind of thing Atlanta needs to try and do. Continually beat the crap out of a team. Take their foot, stomp on their neck, kick them in the nuts and take their lunch money, as I said a couple weeks ago. Just do that every single time to every single team. In the playoffs, this defense has been bullies against 2 pretty good quarterbacks, against 2 pretty decent offenses that have decent running games, that have decent passing attacks. And outside of some quarterback runs, Atlanta's done a good job of stuffing the run. in the playoffs. They've done a good job of controlling the game. And it comes down to the Falcons just need to keep their foot on the gas all day, every day, and just make sure that they stop Tom Brady with the right kind of pressure on the inside. That was the other thing. The Seahawks get great pressure in between the tackles, whether it's Frank Clark, whether it's Michael Bennett, whether it's a Tiba Rubin, no matter who they're using, their pressure on the inside against Brady is very helpful. And they did blitz Bobby Wagner a couple times. They did blitz not Frank Clark. They did blitz what's his name? Outside linebacker. KJ Wright a couple times. And every time that they blitzed them, they forced them into some bad decisions. So I do think that it's going to be that kind of game. Now Brady's going to get his yards because Brady gets his yards, but if the Falcons can prevent Brady from getting his touchdowns, that's the important thing.
Yeah, I think from the Seahawk game that Matt was asking about, like my big takeaways was Seattle was able to get some big plays. I thought CJ Prosise was a big key in that game just because of what we talked about earlier with the Patriots having some slower linebackers. They really struggled to match up with Prosise, and I think Tevin Coleman can have a sort of impact on that game like Prosise did. I think another big key for the Seahawks was they got some red zone stops. And I think, it came down, my recollection is that game came down where New England drove the ball all the way down to like the 2-yard line with less than a minute to go and just needed a touchdown to sort of tie the game up to sit in overtime, and they couldn't get in the end zone. And that was with Gronkowski, I think, still. I know he got injured early in that game, but I think he was back in the game by that point. So I think the key in that game was really red zone defense, getting some big plays and sort of taking advantage of the one real major mismatch that Seattle had on offense with Prosise coming out of the backfield. I think the Falcons can obviously learn from that by using Coleman, as I mentioned. I think the thing about the Patriots scoring defense, I think when people sort of cite that stat, it shows that they're not really thinking about this game. They're just looking at a piece of paper because I think, as Scott said, no, the Patriots don't have a great defense. But I do think the one thing that is legitimate about their defense is how good they are in the red zone. And as we talked about with Matt, I think the Patriots' big strategy is going to be we're not going to be able to stop the Falcons' offense from driving down the field. They're just too good to do that. But if we can slow them down in the red zone, that was a big key to their success against the Steelers. And I think that's going to be the key to their success against the Falcons if they find success. And I think that's where they're going to really hang their hat on. And one of the reasons why they don't give up a lot of points is that, they don't give up a lot of touchdowns when teams get down the field. So I think that is legitimate in the sense, but yeah, they're not a great defense because they haven't really played anybody. But I think the main things for the Falcons is they need to get stops in the red zone, which has been a big weakness of this defense. They're dead last in the league in red zone defense throughout this entire season. They've been a little bit better as of late, but not amazing. I think they still gave up. They were like 3 for 3 against the Packers in the NFC Championship game. So they need to improve in that regard. But I think the big things that they need to learn from that game is use Tevin Coleman quite a bit because he's potentially a major mismatch for their offense. I think the Patriots will try to counter that by blitzing a lot and sort of forcing the Falcons to keep a running back in the backfield and not allowing them to split them out wide where they can create mismatches in the passing game. But I think the Falcons can find ways to burn them with other players as well that way if they do decide to do that. So we'll see.
I do think that the tight ends will play a much bigger game, a much bigger role in this game than they have for the entire season, just because the linebackers, the second level, there's not really those guys in New England that can cover Atlanta's tight ends outside of maybe Chung, but I don't even think Chung's that great at covering tight ends.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Ryan O'Brien asks, what are your keys to Atlanta winning the Super Bowl? Mine are not sitting back in zone all day and getting picked apart by Brady, pressing the receivers a bit, throwing off the timing. And offensively, I think Coleman and Freeman catching passes out of the backfield would be huge. I agree with you, Ryan. I think those are all pretty big keys to the game.
I mean, pretty much, yeah. That I'd even throw in mix up blitzing, mix up the coverages, disguise the coverages a little bit. Maybe do a matchup zone type deal with press coverage. I'd even throw out there like make it to where if they're running in motion, you make it look like man, and then you drop back into zone. That's something that not a lot of defenses do, but it works really well. Guys like Brady, because they're expecting man coverage. Then when you're in zone, you end up getting the pick. I do think, and that's something that Atlanta hasn't shown, but I think they could install. Maybe not every play, but every now and again running that. Now, I'm going to come back to the tight ends. Running these 3 tight end sets, throwing in Josh Perkins, getting the tight ends out there and going with bigger guys and just kind of playing Debo and saying, hey, we're going to throw Levine Toilolo a pass over the middle 15 yards on 2 straight plays. And if you can stop it, cool. If you can't, he's going to get 2 15-yard gains. We're going to throw Austin Hooper the ball over in the flat. We're going to run some of these 13 personnel play action plays that other teams have been burned by and see how well you can handle them. And maybe Hooper ends up wide open, or Toilolo ends up wide open, or Perkins ends up wide open, and they get the ball and really just destroy any hope of the Patriots have of covering these tight ends. I think that's the X factor. I think that's where people are going to sleep on Atlanta, and really where Atlanta can have their biggest game. And I realize that we're talking about this here, but I'm sure Shanahan sees this. I'm sure that Quinn sees this and knows what they're doing. I've never been this confident in a coaching duo. When Atlanta in 2012 was in the NFC Championship game, my whole thought was, man, I hope they don't screw it up. I hope, Atlanta can somehow win this conservative game that that Smith's going to play. But when it came to Quinn, it's like, I know he's going to step his foot on the gas. I know if Atlanta's up 28-0 in the first half, in the second half, they're going to try and make it 56-0 because they don't care real score is. They want to make sure they win the damn game. They were up 44-21, and Quinn, and there was 4 minutes left. And that was when Quinn finally was like, all right, let's run the ball a couple times. Let's take our foot off the gas now. 4 minutes left in the game. It took them that long. So I'd like to see the same kind of thing this week.
Okay. I don't quite agree with the shot you took at Mike Smith coaching staff, but I'll let it go this time.
I was never confident going into that game with Mike Smith's coaching staff. Going into that NFC Championship game. I thought that they had the talent. I didn't know if they had the coaching because I didn't know if they were going to be aggressive enough.
Yeah, I had the opposite opinion. They did not have the talent to beat the 49ers. 49ers were a way better team than they were. And the fact that the only way the Falcons could win that game was getting out to an early lead and just basically holding on for dear life and hoping that the 49ers talent didn't overwhelm them. I think, compared to this team, obviously I think this team is much better because they have good coaching and talent. And they're not the least talented team in this game. They are the more talented team in this upcoming matchup. But that being said, I think another key that we haven't talked about, I think it's a big key, and I think this is going to be the biggest weakness that the Falcons have in this upcoming matchup. And I think a big key is going to be if they play well enough, because I don't think there's really anything they can scheme to sort of hide this weakness, because I think the Patriots are going to scheme towards it. I think the big thing that the Patriots are going to do is they're going to show a lot of their 21 personnel, which since the injury to Gronkowski has been their main offensive personnel set. And when they go 21, the Falcons typically are going to play base. And by 21, for those that don't know what I'm talking about when New England comes out with two running backs and one tight end, which is going to be James Devlin and whoever the running back is probably most likely to be Blunt the majority of the time. And I think the Falcons are going to counter with the base as they've typically done this year, or the assumption is maybe Quinn will throw a wrinkle in that and play a lot more nickel this week.
I have to wonder if they do go in base, though, what exactly that personnel package is going to look like, just because they don't really have how do I put this? They don't really have the guns that they had before with Claiborne and Shelby earlier in the year for the nickel, without using Hageman in the nickel, without using Upshaw there. So maybe we see some Upshaw and some Upshaw, some Babineau in the base too, at strong side end, at under tackle, just to make sure they get the pressure on the quarterback that they need to out of the base. And maybe we see Beasley at strong side linebacker as opposed to Wheeler.
I think that, that may be a way to go. And I think if there's going to be sort of some wrinkle that Quinn throws this week, I think that's going to be it. It's going to be changing up the base, because I think New England's going to basically say the Falcons' base defense can't defend the pass, and their nickel defense can't defend the run. So they're going to put personnel packages on the field that when the Falcons are playing base, they're going to throw and attack that weakness. And when the Falcons go nickel, they're going to try to run. They're going to put 3-4 receivers out in the field and then run the ball with Blunt up the middle. They've been very successful doing that throughout the season. And I think that's going to be the biggest key to success at the Falcons. And that's really going to be on the defensive line to stop that. And I think if the Falcons' defensive line can play well this week, then that's not going to be an issue. And I think getting pressure on Tom Brady as well is going to be critical to this game, because when we've seen games where Brady has struggled, it's been games like that Houston game where they were able to get a lot of pressure on him. And it's not necessarily blitzing, because Brady's so good against the blitz. He was the best quarterback in the league against the blitz. He's been better against the blitz than any other thing throughout this postseason. You got to get pressure with 4 guys, and blitzing a whole lot. You can throw in some blitzes, not to say that you never blitz, but it's not going to be a big key to your success. And so it's one of those things where it's going to boil down to the front 4 controlling the line of scrimmage, and I think that's going to be a big key to success. And we've talked about throughout the season that one of the biggest needs for this team going into the offseason is upgrading their defensive line play. And I hope that issue doesn't become even more of a glaring problem after this game, because the Patriots are able to exploit it and expose it more. I hope it's just kind of like, yeah, this is a thing that we need to work on, but hopefully it's not going to bite the Falcons in the butt in this game. So I think that's another key to success that we'll have to keep a close eye on. YRN70 asks, I've been tuned out since the win. I'm assuming he's talking about the NFC Championship game. Has there been any real news the Falcons preparations?
Not really, other than the whole just random, like, Kyle Shanahan left the game plan in his backpack thing on a locked iPad, by the way. Just dumb.
Yeah, those pesky Patriots, they'll do anything to get an edge, even paying a reporter to steal a backpack. You're not going to hear anything about preparations in terms of if you're talking about like things that they'll actually do in the game. If you're referring to like their practice regimen, I haven't heard anything, but I don't think anybody cares at this point. If you're switching up those types of things this late in the game, that probably doesn't bode too well. So, yeah, I think they've been in Houston since Saturday, so nothing new to report there. Joseph at Broseph929 asks, Chip Kelly, really?
Yeah, really. I mean, when you go back and you look at the concepts behind Kelly's game, you see a guy who has a zone blocking style running game. He does a lot of it out of the shotgun, but I feel like the Falcons' backs can actually run out of the shotgun effectively. He does do the vast majority of his passing attack is very similar to what Kyle Shanahan runs. The real difference is going to be the play calling more than anything else, and the terminology. So if he can keep the terminology about the same, that same standard West Coast offense terminology, if he can keep the running game going, and if he can, be okay with having a no huddle offense all the time, the Falcons will be okay. Honestly, I would rather have Greg Knapp. I'd honestly rather just promote Matt LaFleur, block the hiring of LaFleur going to San Francisco, and just promote him. Give him a shot to be the play caller. He's been under Shanahan for 10 years or for 7 years. He knows how the dude thinks. I guarantee you that LaFleur would be a good offensive coordinator here, and he'd have a lot more to work with than he'll have in San Fran.
Yeah, look, I think it goes without saying that probably whoever the Falcons replace Kyle Shanahan with is going to be a downgrade no matter what. But it's just a question of how much of a downgrade it is. I expect the Falcons offense to still be good next year. It's just, are they going to be like the 10th best offense or the third best offense in the league next year or something like that? So I think that's more the issue. As for Chip Kelly, as Scott said, I think there are some similarities in sort of the style of offense he runs that you don't have to really change a whole lot in terms of personnel. It's just sort of adapting what what your go-to plays are going to be. And I think whoever takes over is going to borrow heavily from what Shanahan did successfully there, if they're anything worth their salt as an offensive coordinator. I don't really care who's the offensive coordinator is, whether it's someone they promote from within, someone they bring out next year. As I said, I think it's going to be a downgrade. I think, it'll cause people to pull out their hair quite a bit this offseason, regardless of who it is. But, until I will reserve judgment on whoever the offensive coordinator is until we get to actual gameplay, because by and large, it's going to be someone who's relatively untested, unless it's Chip Kelly. But even if it's Chip Kelly, I think he's going to do things very similar to what Kyle Shanahan's going to be. So it's not going to be like night and day difference.
Yep. Last two questions.
The first one comes from Nick Pasqualoni. What Patriot player will be the victim to a Keanu Neal hit stick?
I'm going to throw two names out there. The first one is going to be Martellus Bennett. And the second one I'm thinking is going to be Julian Edelman. So let's see how well they hold up.
Yeah, I would be shocked if Neal can lay out Bennett because he's just so big. He's probably like 290 or something at this point. I think it's probably one of the running backs, either Deion Lewis or James White, that he'll be in the lineup. A very big shot on. So those would be my two bets. Noah Taylor asks, are we going to lose now because of Backpack Gate?
Just shut up about this stupid backpack thing.
Oh, man. I do love the panic. I am very much enjoying the panic that people have for every little headline that comes out, whether it's a backpack, whether it's a contract dispute, using
whether
it's
7 years ago the Falcons were prescribing too many painkillers.
Whether they're wearing their white or red uniforms, all these sort of things that people get hyper paranoid about during this time of the year. It's fine, guys. I know we're all a little bit nervous, even if we don't admit it. Going into this game is the biggest game of the Falcons in Falcons history. So, it's certainly going to leave you a little bit paranoid, a little bit nervous than normal. But, take a chill pill. If you got some green, smoke it so you can chill out a little bit, and just enjoy the time, enjoy the game. It'll be a fun, intriguing matchup. All this nonsense that you're hearing over the next couple of days, unless someone decides that they want to go out and go trolling for prostitutes the night before the game, I think it'll all be fine.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to see that.
I hope not. But yeah, so that's our show, guys. As I said earlier when we started the mailbag questions, if there were some topics that you thought we should have hit that we did not hit, we probably hit it on last week's show. So you guys can go over to Pro Football Central or find that on iTunes, Stitcher. Check it out on YouTube. You can find the podcast in all types of ways. Give us a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff. If you want to hit up Scott during this week, he's at Karasik S. I am at Falcons. I am planning on getting my big I think it's going to be about 10,000 words at this point. Preview up by Friday. That if you want to, take you 2 days to read it. So you guys can look forward to that.
I'm going to have a slightly different preview. It's going to be about one article that's about 1,000 words and another article that's about like 600 words.
There you go.
If you want like more, how do I put this? Abridged versions of what Aaron's going to put out.
Yes. I am long-winded, both in writing and in talking. So you guys know me. So, but it will be great if you can slog through it. So that's what's on deck this weekend. Enjoy the weekend. Have fun, guys. All of you guys that are out in Houston, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get all the dreams that you're hoping for, and that $7 million that you're spending to get out to the game this weekend. You won't regret that decision, because the Falcons will do all the things that we want them to do. So enjoy it. We will be back next week to talk about this game, and hopefully it won't be a sad show.
I hope to God that we are going to be talking about how the Falcons just won their first Super Bowl. So
yes.
Let's hope.
Yes, we can all hope. Cross your fingers. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.